I've had about enough of this paint. Hello beautiful people and welcome to another project. I found this really nice looking cupboard on Facebook Marketplace and I thought it had a little potential, so I decided to restore it. Seems like Mando liked it as well, so I was off to a good start. Looks like someone did a proper job painting this. There's blue, white, light blue and green. As you can see, there is a lot of paint on this cupboard, so to make it a bit easier for myself, I removed everything that I was able to remove, and this way I gave myself the best access to all the nooks and crannies. Of course, when you work with something like this covered in paint, you don't really know what's underneath until you take all of this paint off. Look how thin this is. I think this needs to be glued. Yeah. With all that paint underneath, it was going to be tricky to remove it, so I wanted to take the legs off. Looks like this is glued all around, plus to these support pieces, so I'll just clean it as it is. But I've cleaned the screws and I'm going to clean these holes after the screws are out. Trying to unglue the base probably wouldn't have been worth the effort because I would have risked damaging it and I just didn't want to do that. I'm going to see if it's fairly easy to scrape this off and I'll go from there. Even though there was a lot of paint on this cupboard, it was quite easy to scrape it. Obviously, it took some elbow grease and a lot of time, but it wasn't difficult. I'm not sure if you're able to tell, but this entire cupboard is made from cheap wood and plywood covered in veneer. And as it's almost always the case with an old piece of furniture that's covered in veneer, there is some damage underneath in all the typical places, corners, edges, especially on the doors and drawers, so I'm expecting that. What I don't know is whether there are any stains and things that I won't be able to repair, so I won't know that until all the paint is off. It's been a while since I've done a proper restoration on my channel, and with this piece I really like the shape and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, so I'm thinking that I want to take it back to its original shape and look, or at least what I think it used to look like. It looks like the grain actually goes in this direction, which is quite unusual because typically it's the other way around, which in a way is good because it will be much easier for me to clean it in this area. So I will need to scrape against the grain. Probably the most challenging bit about this project was trying to get the paint out of all those difficult to get to places because it was literally everywhere. I don't know if you know that, but there are huge differences between different types of wood, and oak is one of those that has large gaps between oak fibers, so the paint gets stuck between them and then it's very difficult to get it out. If you're working with a solid piece of oak, it's not really an issue because you can keep sanding until all the paint is gone. But if you're working with oak veneer, which is very thin, you keep sanding and then you end up burning through the veneer and then the whole project is ruined. And by the way, this decorative molding piece that I'm working on right now and the whole base, the legs, that is not oak. I think this is beech. So you also need to keep that in mind, because if you want to stain something like this, you might end up with two different colors because those woods will absorb stain differently. With all the flat surfaces, even though obviously it took some time and effort, it was pretty satisfying and pretty straightforward. But what I'm doing right here, it was a bit more complicated and there was no easy way to do this or to get to those places with any specific tool, so I typically just try whatever works. I'm a bit worried that I'm going to take this paint off right now and there's going to be all sorts of problems underneath after all the work that I've done, but well, let's see. I guess that's the fun about working on a painted piece of furniture, because you've got no idea what's underneath. I can't see any damage, maybe a bit of a staining here, but seems like someone painted it just because they liked the color, not because there was anything wrong with it. Happy days, there's nothing really wrong with this. I mean, nothing I can't fix.
A few moments later.
I've had enough of this paint. I'm just kidding, I'm gonna sand it. Let me know in the comments if you thought I was actually going to burn it. And quick shout out to the person who decided to put 3 coats of paint on the back of this cupboard. Thank you. There's so much paint on here and it's so deep in the grain. In order to remove it, I need to sand a lot and I'm risking going through the veneer, but let's see if I can save it, because it looks quite nice here, but I don't know how much of this veneer is left.
2,000 years later.
This is hardwood veneer, so it's quite difficult to sand this, but it looks really nice. So now I just need to do the rest. And Bob's your uncle. So I'm happy to say that I was actually able to eventually clean the back, so there was no paint on it at all and I didn't need to replace it. I know that many people who watch my videos, they don't actually want to restore furniture or work on it, they just enjoy the process. But I know that some of you want to give it a go eventually, or you have done already. So I left a lot of this scraping and sanding footage in this video just so you have an idea what it actually takes to restore a piece of furniture like this and undo this whole painting process. And just so you know, this is not an antique, this isn't valuable at all. This is a pretty cheap piece of furniture, but I like the shape and I think it was designed well and I want to make it look as best as it can. Whoever owned this cupboard before and decided to paint it was very thorough, so it's painted on the inside, the back, underneath and everywhere else, so yeah, that took a minute. And the thing about this particular piece is that I did think about trying to make this look natural and keep the color light, but because this is veneer and it's very thin, there's only so much I can do about removing the paint, so there will be some left in the grain, and if I don't stain it or do anything about the color, the paint will be visible and that's just not very professional, is it? These are the two spots that are missing some veneer, so I'll need to repair these. And there is a stain. Overall, the top, definitely not perfect, but it's not terrible. I can certainly work with this. And yes, I could try and use my dental tool to remove all the paint, but you will probably need to wait for this video until the next year. I'm going to use filler for these small repairs. I'm purposely using light color because I haven't decided what I'm going to do as far as the color, so and for this black stain I'm going to start with oxalic acid and see if this will do the job. And now I just need to sand this whole thing, which is going to be a bit tricky because of this waterfall element, but let's see what we can do. It actually wasn't as bad. I basically used high-grade sandpaper, so I wouldn't need to worry about going through the veneer, and I was careful. And when I was done with that, I used a sanding block and 180 grit sandpaper, and I went over this whole area and did it by hand. And when I was done with sanding, I used my trusty dental tool to scoop out all that embedded paint. There was a tiny area that for whatever reason I sanded through the veneer. I think it's just because the veneer wasn't very even. It was very small, so I used my fine tip touch-up markers and I recreated a grain pattern so it blended in. And I also color corrected all those tiny areas where someone used wood filler to cover nails, I'm assuming. I'm going to repeat this pattern over these white spots to basically blend them in. And this just looks much better rather than just coloring the spot and making it round. It just sticks out more. And yes, there is still some paint in the groove in the back of this cupboard, but I will still need to do lots of touching up and lots of other things to this cupboard, so don't you worry. Of course, there were some drawers in this cupboard, so I had to scrape off the paint from the fronts of them as well, and the sides, and a little bit from the insides. I hope you're enjoying this video. As always, I wanted to give a quick shout out to everyone for commenting, liking and watching my videos, because that allows me to do what I do. And a special shout out to the channel members. You guys are the best. There was no veneer on the bottom, so I'm just going to sand this, and the top piece is damaged, so I'm going to just sand this thing off and replace it, because I do have some edge banding that basically looks like the original one. There is also quite a bit of damage on the edges, which is very typical, and I could fix all of these individually as I have in some other places, but I actually have a pretty cool idea that will cover these and will make this look even better. The inside of the door looked actually pretty bad, but I'm happy with what I've been able to do with it. I don't like the way this looks, and there's just a lot of damage on both sides. I think I'm just gonna take a tiny bit of this off and replace it with a piece of veneer. I'm literally taking like 1 millimeter off, just so it's a nice and clean edge. I think I might need to replace this as well. Let's make it nice and clean all around. So now I'm going to use this veneer and basically replace this little bit that I cut off. And this edge banding already has adhesive on it, so I'm just heating it up with my iron and it will just stick to it. Super easy. And now I'm just going to do this on the other edges. I've been able to clean this quite nicely. There are only a couple of stubborn spots with paint, but some of the veneer is missing, so I think I'm just going to replace this entire piece. I've been getting some odd comments and I feel like there is confusion about the whole subscription membership thing. Subscription is completely free, and basically what it does, it just tells YouTube that you like a particular channel, and if you hit the notification bell, YouTube will let you know when I post a new video. And that's it. Membership is something extra. It costs as little as $1.99 and it gives you access to some behind the scenes and things like my old videos, but my regular videos are and always have been free for everyone. I really hope this is clear now. I've got an idea what to do to cover this and make it actually look nice. So I'm going to basically replace this with a patch. And now, because the line is cut, I can scoop out the middle bit and replace it with a patch. This will be covered by the hardware, so it doesn't need to be perfect, but I just want it to look better than it does now. And I'm going to use a tiny bit of wood glue to blend in this transition. It's getting warmer in the UK, so I'll be probably working outside now. Lots of trouble. And you'll be seeing Mando, my cat, and Hugo, my neighbor's cat, more often, because they'll be visiting my workshop now. By the way, thank you to everyone who made comments about over-grooming and what I could possibly do with Mando to help him. Looks like oxalic acid has done a very good job, so you can't really see this stain. For once, I'm not going to get rid of this piece. I'll clean it and I'll put it back on. I'm finally getting to the point where I can see the end of it. I gave the inside a good clean because the varnish on the shelves was not in a great condition, so I wanted to refresh it. And instead of stripping the whole thing and redoing it, I decided to give it a good clean, and then I gave it a very light sanding with 240 grit sanding sponge. I put a coat of clear satin lacquer on the shelves, and then I used a little bit of tinted lacquer to cover the discoloration that you see in the middle. Then I put some more lacquer on top of it, and Bob's your uncle. So this is basically a way to restore a finish that isn't in a terrible condition but doesn't look great. You could always try restore a finish, which I talked about in my previous video, but This is definitely more durable and better solution. I also engraved my logo on the back of this cupboard, and I cut 4 more patches for the previous holes in the drawers, and I replaced them as I did on the doors. This time I'm using veneer that's got adhesive on the back, so I don't need to glue it. I'm just warming it up so the adhesive melts and sticks to the surface. I gave everything a coat of satin lacquer to basically seal it and get it ready for the next step. The insides of the drawers looked a bit tired, but there wasn't anything wrong with them, so I didn't want to sand everything. I simply sprayed them with clear lacquer, and that made everything look great. Now that I'm spraying everything with clear satin lacquer, you can see that it makes the wood orange, and I don't like that look. You probably know that by now, but this will basically get it ready and seal it for the next step. And yes, I could have stained it, but as I mentioned before, there are 2 different types of wood, so the stain will probably absorb differently. And what I'm going to do is actually easier, in my opinion, and at least for me, than staining it. For a change, I want this cupboard to be one color, and this is tinted lacquer in color walnut, and this is just the first application. I'll do several light coats until I'm happy with the color. And as you can see, spraying this over clear lacquer completely covered the discoloration and made the inside look great. When I was done with the lacquer toner and I was happy with the color, I sprayed several coats of clear satin lacquer, and it was pretty much done. And now that I could see exactly the color it was, I was able to go in with my touch-up markers and fix those tiny areas that I filled in with wood filler. At this point, there are only a few things left to do. I cleaned up the old hardware because I'm going to reuse it, at least the hinges. I used my wire wheel and I put the doors back in. This cupboard didn't have the original handles and I don't know what they looked like, but I found really cool looking little acorns that I think are suitable given this is made of oak, and I think they look great. I've got this metallic trim piece and it's got adhesive strip on the back, and I'm going to put it over here and on the bottom. You're probably not surprised if you watch my videos because I really like brass and I haven't really done anything with brass in a long time, and this might be my new favorite thing. I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to add it in a few more places because there's never enough brass. And I think this is a nice way of elevating the look and making this look a bit more chic. And I think it will look nice that it's repeated over here as well. By the way, these are really nice. They look like brass. These are infinitely easier to work with than real brass strips, so if I don't forget, I'll put a link in the description so you guys can get these. I hope you enjoyed this project. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the final results and see you in the next video.